let them in. We got Barbara coming in, and we got Macker coming in.
Macker.
Macker.
Dr. Macker.
Dr. Macker.
Hello, Steve.
How are you?
It.
Okay, we are live on YouTube, so welcome everybody. Dr. Macker's in the house. Woohoo! All right, we are live. Yes, let's
see if that works.
Okay, so welcome to the very first Agile Beer USA, and we are a wild bunch. We still got people coming in, but today I'm gonna
Hi, Barbara. Hi, Jim.
I'm getting a lot of feedback, so we're going to try this. I'm going to start sharing. Again, if you joined us a little late and
Steve, you need to turn down your YouTube. That's probably what's giving you feedback.
yeah, hang on.
You have it up and running in parallel.
Okay, no, I'm going to turn it now. All right, we're good. I had to close it. My first time. Now I learned. So thank you again. Sorry about that. Again, if you don't want to show your face all over YouTube and social media, you feel free to turn your camera off. We will not be offended. But I am going to take a quick snapshot of everybody right now because this is the first of many, hopefully, sessions that we're going to have. I'm currently planning on doing one of these every month. But we'll see how things work out for us. Thank you again for showing up. I got the snapshot. We're good to go. So now I'm going to share. We got a few things that we want to talk about for. Not getting any feedback. Can you all see that? The deck?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes. You can see the deck.
All right,
and
thank you.
Hear and see you fine, Steve.
Okay,
Good
thank
job.
you very much. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to move on. So the first thing we want to talk about is we want to talk about our Meetup team agreements. Now, fortunately, it seems like there's quite a few people here that's been here before, not for USA, but for other locations and even face-to-face. So for those that are brand new to this, we're going to talk about our team Meetup agreements. And the first thing that you already know that we talked about is that we do have a live session going on YouTube right now. So this is going to be interesting to watch myself. I'll probably drink more than I should after this is over as I'm watching it. The other thing that we want to be aware of is we want to be patient with each other because, you know, some of us have pets and kids and family and there's going to be noise and disruption in the background. But so please be patient with us. The other thing is this is called Agile Beer for a reason, because when it was face-to-face, we would drink some beer together. I actually had the pleasure of attending a face-to-face Agile Beer in Sao Paulo a couple of years ago. And it was really great fun. So if you don't have your beer or water or wine or gin, take a minute and go get it and come back real quick. So we'll give about a minute for you to get your drink. Those of you that already have it, that's great. We can start with that. I didn't see anybody leave, so I assume everybody's got their drink. Another thing, and I don't know if some of the more older people in Agile Beer can talk about it, but no talking politics. Coca, can you expound on that? Why we have that?
Yeah, sure. So that's essentially that's usually more for the Brazilian community, and I suppose that for the North American community as well. We appreciate if you don't bring any politics topics into Agile Beer, because you know that tends to go off track sometimes and people may get passionate, and that's not really the purpose of this group.
Okay, great. So I'm assuming that something happened in the first group that was
I
not very
always had a
favorable.
story.
We had to iterate and include that on the team's agreements.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure we don't talk about any politics in this session. Next thing is, if you can, cameras on. We understand that for some people, it's for some people that are here, it's like after 1 o'clock in the morning. Coca's joined us from Ireland, and we've got other people from all over the place, so it's pretty late. The other thing we ask is when things get going is we want to make sure that our microphones are muted so there's no background noise, especially when Coca, who's our guest speaker, does her talk. And then afterwards we'll have a Q&A, and then we can, of course, talk as much as we want. Some of the tools we're going to use is, of course, is Zoom, and there's a tool we're going to use called Slice. We're going to use those Slice within our breakout sessions, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then also we'll have some feedback and LinkedIn references if you want to add to that. So is there any questions about the team meetup before we move on? If you do, give me a verbal or give me a thumbs up if you have questions. Okay, we're moving on. All right, so what I'd like for you to do first is we want to know where everybody's at. So if you could go to this website, I'm going to start it. Let me get there so we can start it. We'll fire this puppy up and enter the code, and that will tell us where you're from. So I'm going to go back so you can see the code. Hang on. I'll put the code back up there again. It's minty.com, and the code is 664612. Okay, we got Rio and Sao Paulo, of course, Copper's Cove. Another one from Rio. Hudson Valley, New York. Vancouver. Oh, someone from Canada.
Vancouver, the
Panama.
best place.
And Canada too. Oh my goodness, look at all these places.
That's what I call a global meetup.
Yeah.
I think it's not Agile
Humble,
Beer
Texas.
USA. I think it's global Agile Beer.
Are we doing another one? Well,
That's super
they're all
cool.
for anybody. I mean,
No
I'd go
barriers
to the, yeah. We got 9 people. Is everybody finished? So for the people I can't see, are you calling in? I think David's on his iPad. So, we got some more. We got Orlando. Okay, awesome. Poughkeepsie, New York. We got 11. Okay, well, I think that's good for now. It's almost everybody. So we'll get back to the deck again. So thank you again for that. It's interesting to see where people are from versus where people registered that they were from. So that's really interesting. So one thing that I want to let you know is, that the Agile Beer is truly a global effort. It started in Rio. There's quite a few in Brazil because that was its home base initially, but it's, in Blumenau and Campinas and Sao Paulo, Dublin and London and Netherlands and Singapore even, and Portugal and Lisbon and Porto and now the US. And, I'm even though it's USA, I'm based out of Texas. I'm in Central Texas, a little place called Copper's Cove. So we're all over the world. And for those of you that might be interested, we do have a Agile Beer Global session, once a month, Coca?
Sorry, I wasn't muting. Yeah, it's once a month, the Portuguese edition, and then we have once a month in the English version.
Yeah.
So there's actually 2.
Actually, two
different
That's
languages.
right. That's right. Okay, so let's talk about our mission because we got to cover that. This is based off of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. If you're not familiar with that, that's something interesting to look at. So why are we here? Well, we're here because we want to help spread the Agile mindset and share the knowledge and experiences that we feel is essential to help increase our community and help us belong to a community. There's a lot of agile things going on, and we're just trying to create a community for people to get together, especially when it was initially started in Rio. It was all face to face so that people could come together, and it spread out, and until COVID happened, it was strictly face to face. And then as soon as COVID happened, it went global. And that's one of the reasons why I got involved with trying to get something for the USA going, because initially I talked to Kobo a while back about trying to get something going in the US with global beer. And my lawyer told me, don't you dare do that, because if somebody gets drunk at your Agile Beer and has an accident and dies, they will sue you. And so my lawyer strongly advised me, do not do that in the United States. And since Texas has one of the highest driving while under the influence rates, that would be extremely stupid. So I'm really glad we're doing this remotely. So that's our why and how. Again, it's when things get better, there's going to be face-to-face in different countries depending on the laws. And of course, I'm going to continue doing virtual, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other people doing virtual as well. And what are we? Well, we're a group of Agilists, and we want to make a difference. We want to promote people knowledge sharing and providing lectures and information. We want to have a lot of fun. We want to drink some beer or whatever you want to have. But we just want to get together and share with each other. And it's also a place for people that don't know anything about Agile to come into a safe environment and learn and ask questions that they might be afraid of asking of other people in a different environment. So that's our mission. Any questions on that? Okay, I see some heads shaking. No. All right, moving on. So here's some people from all over the world. I'm not going to do all the names because I'll screw most of them up. But those are our faces. And then we got some more places for the rest of the world. And again, I'll provide this deck to anybody. And if you just send me a private message on our Agile Beer USA Meetup group, I'll send this to you. Especially this slide. This slide has the URLs of all the Agile Beer meetups all over the world. And you can attend to any of them or all of them. It's up to you. And we would love to have you. All right. Any questions so far? Because now we're going to turn it over to Coca, and she's going to talk to us for about 20 minutes. Afterwards, we're going to have a 10-minute Q&A, and then we'll get into lean beer and we'll talk about that as well. All right. So Coca, without any ado, I'm going to stop sharing if you like, and you can enlighten us with your experience.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have you taking care of the Agile Beer USA. I know this has been a point in our conversations for a long, long time. And I'm super, super thrilled that, Agile Beer actually worked when we started back in 2016 in a small pub in Rio de Janeiro. Zé was there, a few folks were there, and now we conquered the world. It's a huge satisfaction. Steve, I need permission to share the screen.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I just made you a host.
Super. Now I am going to share.
Now you have
guys see
full
my-
power.
Yep, you
Yes.
have power.
I love it. Amazing. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So just before I start, I wanted to do a small disclaimer here at the beginning. This is the first time I'm going to talk about this topic. as a presentation. I've exchanged a little bit of my journey in more personal conversations with, closer friends and family, but this hasn't been a topic that I've shared in a larger scale. So I'm bringing this talk firsthand to the wider audience, and I am super happy that we are doing this in one of the Agile Beers. And, forgive me in advance if you notice that I get a little bit emotional as I talk through this, okay? So breaking down and breaking through a little bit of my journey through the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. So a little bit about me. I suppose most of you know me already. My name is Cristiane, but I go by Coca. I am originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, or Niterói, as we were speaking earlier. And I moved to Dublin, Ireland with my whole family 3 years ago in order to provide them a better life opportunity and for professional advancement for myself. You will find me in the social medias through hashtags like Mom of Three, because of my 3 kids and loads of adventures that we do together, and also as Agile coach. I am currently working in Zurich, and I am a Scrum Master there, but I like to see myself as, an Agile coach, because that's where I feel I'm most tuned in to describe what I like to do. I am also the founder of the Agile Beer Meetup and super glad to be here once again. And these are some of my contact information in case you want to reach out to me on the site. So before the pandemic started, I used to be head of Agile transformation and design in a company called Retail Emotion, which belonged to the Lufthansa Group. At the time, I had been with the company for about 2 years, and I've led their transformation into, Agile and business agility and all of that. And we were doing, excellent advancements. We were being praised by people who, joined the company, and also for people who left the company and had different experiences in the outside world. They would come back to me and they would say, hey, Coca, you're doing a great job there. Your team is doing a great job there. It's very nice to see how the whole adoption is doing. For those, I hope it's clear now that this was in the aviation industry, since Retail Emotion was part of Lufthansa, which is essentially traveling. Family-wise, as I mentioned in the beginning, these are my 3 kids. I also have 3 pets, and I provide big support to my family back in Brazil as well, especially to my mom and, my youngest sister. So when the whole pandemic started, I suppose we all started seeing on the news like the effect of the pandemic, on the world and on the market and for the jobs, and for personal lives and all of that. The airline industry, specifically where I worked, we suffered greatly with the whole COVID thing. Like if the airplanes aren't flying, if people are not allowed to travel, because we were spreading the virus around the world, bringing it back and forth, then there was no way we could be making money, right? And I suppose that's just a natural thing for the companies that depend on this kind of things, like the tourism, airline, retail shops, and all of these things. And I suppose that, everybody around the world may have observed some of these impacts. So with the pandemic and everything, I suppose that's when we saw VUCA extreme, right? Even before the pandemic, there has been a lot of talking around this VUCA thing. For those who don't know, VUCA is the acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, which essentially means nothing really stays the same. Everything is changing the whole time. It's very complex to understand what we do next and what are the consequences of our actions. And with ambiguity, I suppose there is no one answer. There is no straightforward answer. Everything could have multiple meanings. Everything could take you multiple places. So with the whole pandemic and everything that was happening around the world, it was just this whole VUCA, you know, exponentially elevated. So it was taken to the extremes. As an Agilist, as a head of Agile, as a design lead, I thought in my head that Agile and business agility would be essentially the way to go, right? Which better framework, which better mindset can you use when you're navigating through a VUCA world with so much uncertainty, so many unknowns, you know, planning, having a vision, you know, and planning in small iterations and making sure you're sensing and responding and you're collecting feedback and you're reacting on top of this feedback. To me, it was very strong in my mind, you know, in my heart, that that was the way we should be going. And with the company, it was no different. Like many different businesses, I was thinking that, you know, COVID-19 was potentially an opportunity for all companies, including the aviation industry, to go and experiment, to try new things, you know, to innovate, maybe to disrupt the status quo and way things were happening, and to reinvent themselves. And that's when I was a little bit surprised when I was informed by my company that I was made a non-essential worker. So it was very hard for me to understand how Agile and business agility could be non-essential, you know, during a pandemic, during such a crisis. And it was even worse to me how this whole thing happened virtually, you know. I don't know if you are going through similar situations, and I don't expect you to, you know, raise your hands if you are, because I know this is a sensitive topic for most people. Like it was for me as well. It took my time to get ready to talk about this. But when everything happens in a remote world, I think it has an extra weight because you lose the human interface, right? You're dealing with the video, you're dealing with the whole situation most of the time in your home, and you're surrounded by your family and your kids, and you're having a bad day. Sometimes you are in your bedroom. You know, I used to work from my bedroom. So I was in my bedroom having a bad news from work, you know, having to leave the bedroom and face my kids. You know, that was extra large to me. I had no time to digest. I had no time to talk to people. I didn't connect to receive such news, and I really didn't know what to do with all these emotions. And this was the point where I felt I was breaking down. And, you know, living one of the foundational values of Agile and being fully transparent and open with you, these are just some of the feelings that I had when everything started to happen. So I felt anger, you know, I was disappointed. I regretted so much everything I had done for the company, and, you know, all my personal time and all my dedication, you know, and the nights and the weekends. You probably know how this story goes. And I was sad. I felt that I had been betrayed. You know, I took it so personal. I couldn't dissociate Coca from the role that I was performing for a company. And I was just so hurt. I couldn't see beyond my pain. And maybe I rushed things a little bit. And I cried that day. Of course, I was very upset. I cried. I was, you know, I was really breaking down. And I went to bed. And when I woke up the next day, I said, you know what? Day zero. I'm going to start it from scratch and figure out what I'm going to do next. And I now when I look back, I just feel that I definitely rushed things. I didn't allow myself the time to recover from all all the pain and to figure out what was I actually feeling and what I had to do next. And that resulted in actually breaking down, to a lower degree where, my hurt just became a bigger hurt. And when you ignore things and they come back and bite you. And that was exactly what was happening to me. So when I realized that I may have been rushing things, a little too much, I decided that I was going to just, look within me, look inside me, find my new center, and, who knows, start again. So that was the time when I was actually more recluded, I was more introspective. I was trying to figure out, the feelings that I was having and even the behaviors that I was having and how much intoxicated I was with all, these bad feelings that I was carrying. And it came to a point where, now looking back, I think that was my breaking point or my breaking even point, where I started to balance out, how deep I went into my negative emotions and then I was coming back up. And I would summarize this breaking even point as a place where I was now able to receive feedback, whether that was positive feedback or if that was negative/constructive feedback. I was asking for feedback. I was now able to share a little bit the story and hear other people's perspective, what they had to say, what was their point of view, maybe they agreed that that was the best way for the company to go. And I started to understand that this was not an easy decision for neither side, not just for me, but surely for the company and for every other person that was going through the same. It wasn't easy, for anybody. And I started opening myself a little bit for receiving the love from people and to be cared, for people. People would write to me and just ask me how I was doing, how I was holding up. And I would be honest with people. I would tell them if I was not. I would tell them if I was having a hard time, or I would say, you know what, I have good days and I have bad days, and I have good hours and I have bad hours, all in one day. And just being able to talk about this openly and honestly with my own feelings helped me realize, what I was actually feeling in the journey that I was going through. I also started to exercise a little bit more the gratitude, like small things. I am so grateful for the Irish government, for example. I know we're not supposed to talk about politics here, but I felt really cared, by my government. I felt that, it wasn't everything lost, that I still had a way, that things weren't get, too much worse. And that was the point where I started to rethink, how do I use my time? Because it was a massive shock for me to one day be, full-time worker, in many, many meetings, all those emails, all those messages, just swamped of work. And then the next day, nothing. And I didn't really know how to deal with this. I didn't know what to do with my time. I didn't know what to use my mind for. I remember I felt literally dizzy because I just didn't know where to focus or what to do, or I don't need to think about, my company problems anymore all of a sudden. And I had to learn to let go, and I had to learn how was I going to build a new routine, knowing that that was a temporary routine as well, so letting go of trying to control things, letting go of any kind of long-term plannings. My plans were only for that week and that week only. And sometimes it was just for a day, and sometimes it was just for a morning, and sometimes it would be even a smaller chunk of time. I could only really deal with small things at a time. I also started to see the opportunity to do things I never had time to do, and I was thinking, all those posts that I wanted to make on social media, all the events that I wanted to participate, all the articles that I wanted to write, all the time that I wanted to spend with my kids, the recipes that I've been piling up and thinking one day maybe I'll do this, and my walk and the jog and going back to running. I started to think I've never, I couldn't do any of these things because I was so busy with the previous routine. And now I have all this time back all of a sudden. And how am I going to repurpose? What am I going to do with it? And I also engaged a lot with the community, a lot more. I feel that I am a person who is already very engaged to the Agile community in general, but it was an opportunity for me to come even closer. And only when I arrived, at this moment, I felt I was really ready for my day zero once again. And this makes me, this reminds me of a post that I did on Instagram during this period. And I said, day zero, you can have as many day zeros as you need. And that's true. Even from an Agile principle, it's fine if you start something, it's an experiment. It's a VUCA world. You don't really know what's going to happen. And if you fail, it's okay. It's okay for you to go back and for you to replan and for you to figure out, where did you step incorrectly? What did you do wrong? And how can you try again? How can you try with your mistakes? And I've had a number of day zeros since then. I have a number of times where I said, okay, I need to start again. And that is fine. It's fine to start over as many times as you need. And I feel a few things that I really wanted to share with you guys, as you transition from breaking down to breaking through, are seeing choice rather than faith. And this is a question that I ask myself very much. Will you allow the pain and hurt to defeat or define you? Right? So was I going to be in the place of the victim, feeling all those toxic things, or I was going to overcome this, I was going to actually get a hold of myself and get a hold of life and try to figure out what I was going to do next, even if I failed, right? So see that we always have a choice rather than just accepting things as faith, right? That's one of the big things that I've learned through the pandemic. The other thing is take a long, hard look at life. And, so many times I just ignored and I said, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't have time to eat properly, or I don't have time to, help so many people, or to make some phone calls to friends, or to, teach my son how to ride a bicycle because we only have the weekends and I'm so busy the rest of the days. And that wasn't something easy to look to and to look at. And I was forced to actually look and see all these gaps and to see all these, all these things that I always wanted to do and I've never had a chance to do. And rethink about these things. Are these things that I still want to do? How am I going to make them, come to life? Because now I had access to time that I was not used to. And it just reinforced to me how precious time is. Money can't buy time, but if it could, I'm sure it would be very expensive. So many times I found myself saying, I wish my day had a couple more hours. I wish my day, was a little bit longer. That was when I was working. And all of a sudden I felt, the day is perfect. It's just long enough. It's just how I prioritize and how I balance and how I make it work for me that counts. And each one of us has different needs. Each one of us will have to figure out how to make it work for you, if that's the time, if that's your journey, if these are the challenges, whatever it is, make it work for you. And maybe you won't get it right the first time. And it's what I said, that's okay. You can start over. You know, this is a journey, and it's okay if we, you know, if we trip over and we fall, as long as we keep getting up and trying again, you know, something new and something different. Decide that you are defined by your actions from this point forward, you know, and that was something very strong as well. I once again, I did not want to be a victim of the whole thing. I wanted to make a change. I wanted to repurpose. I wanted to rethink my industry. I wanted to rethink my contributions to the world. I wanted to experiment launching my new business, which is coming along, but it's, you know, it's not the top priority at the moment. So take actions, you know, grab a hold. You are on the driving seat of your life. Even though some events will present themselves, just like when you're driving, and then you have to take an action, you know, you have to do something when they present this in front of you. And this is one of my favorite sentences. And when I look back, I can definitely see how it played a strong role during this COVID-19 journey. There is a driving force more powerful than steam, electricity, and nuclear power. And that's the will, the desire, you know, when you really want something and you really want to make that change. This feeling, this force, it is very powerful. And as I had all these reflections, and as I was doing all these, you know, these learnings, and I was receiving all this love, that was when I finally started to break through. So I was learning my lessons. I also learned that I needed to have fun, you know, and this is something that I keep reminding people, make sure you're having fun. That's what matters, you know, that you're enjoying, that you're finding joy in the things you do, even if they're hard. That's very important. That's where the pleasure of living, you know, that's where the pleasure of life comes from. I also learned to depersonalize from what happened. You know, I learned that the company didn't make me redundant. You know, the company made my role redundant, and they made their decisions around agile and business agility. And that's fine. If they think that that was the better approach, you know, that's fine. That has nothing to do with Coca, you know, the mother of the kids and the passionate person about agile and, you know, the passionate person about helping others. And I think this was key for me as well. I also started volunteering more, you know, in events with the community, supporting other people, helping other people achieve great things. I have never had such a number of mentees running in parallel. You know, I really found a purpose, a reason, you know, to get up every day and to learn something every day, because I could transfer my knowledge to someone else and I could help someone else do great things, achieve great things. So this was very important. Revamping my CV, right? I was very proud of the CV that I had. But actually when I took it and I was, you know, looking through in more detail and thinking, how could I improve? I learned two things about my CV. First, there was loads of rooms for improvement. And second, what an amazing journey I had had so far. You know, I think sometimes we take this for granted. And if we all spend some time to reflect a little bit, you know, about our choices of university, you know, the courses that we did, the internships that we went, our first jobs, you know, and where we all are now, I'm pretty sure we're going to be very proud of ourselves and the journey we are getting through. And that was what I felt when I look at my CV. And I was like, well done, Coca. You're doing great. You know, don't give up now. Things are going to get better. And I decided to try things I never had time to do, and I never had the guts to do either. So I'm adventuring myself on Instagram as well. I downloaded TikTok. I'm getting more used to my own image, you know, and I still don't do the dances, Pedro, but maybe I will get there. but I am definitely learning how to deal with the camera and feel more comfortable with my own image and my own voice, which I'm pretty sure that it's going to, bring me great things in the future. Another thing that I would like to share with you all is the whole interviewing process, right? So I went down and I was looking for jobs, right? I was doing all this journey. It's all nice, right? But in the practical sense, I also needed to provide for my family. As I mentioned to you guys in the beginning, I have 3 kids. I provide for my family back in Brazil. I have 3 pets, I have a rent. There's loads of bills that I need to pay. So also being very pragmatic, I needed an income, I needed a job because I needed to pay my bills. And this phase of interviewing was kind of hard for me because I was being rejected in so many roles that I was applying for. It's unbelievable. I was getting returns, and most of them would say that I was overqualified for the job, and I could never understand what that meant. And somebody suggested to me, Coca, maybe you need to dumb down your CV. Maybe you need to remove a few things from your CV. And I was thinking, how does that make sense? That is lying anyway, right? When we make our CVs look better by adding things, I think it's just as bad as when we remove things that we've experienced and we know. So I felt very demotivated, many times that I went for interviews and I just wasn't getting through. And especially with the COVID-19, there wasn't many options open. So I got to a moment where I was like, I've applied to every job that's open in Ireland at the moment and for every remote job. And I either got a no or I haven't heard back. And I was scared that this was going to last forever, and I felt a little bit anxious. So I created mechanisms to deal with it. And one of the things that I did was I decided that I was going to be the first one to wake up in the morning. What I said to you guys, like drive the actions, take the actions. I decided that I was going to be the first one to get up in the morning. I would get up at 5 and I would from 5 to 8, which was the time the kids were still asleep. I would, work on my CV. I would adapt my CV and cover letters to apply for specific jobs. I would look for jobs. I would connect to people on LinkedIn. I would follow up on jobs that I had previously posted. And just doing that as the first thing of my day was so valuable because it made me feel that I had already done something for myself and, for the problem that I needed to solve, which was, having an income and being able to provide to my family. So I felt a relief. I wasn't letting my anxiety just go above my head anymore. And that was a priority on my day. I was fresh and there was no interruptions. So it was just me and my computer and my CV and the decisions that I was making. Another thing that I wanted to share with you all, I'm not sure if you're familiar with these words, fragile, robust, and anti-fragile, but I've learned that what I want to be is not necessarily resilient. I want to be anti-fragile. So I just don't want to be, like being compressed and being able to come back to my previous state as what resilient would mean. But I actually wanted to come back better from the disorder. So I wanted to become anti-fragile more and more. And I've learned that every disorder in life, every challenge you have is an opportunity for us to make ourselves a better version. And that is the journey, to getting anti-fragile. I love this sentence and it just means so much to me going through this journey. I thought I'd share with you all. Sometimes you're in a dark place. You think you've been buried, but you actually have been planted. And I think this is just beautiful because sometimes we're there in those dark places and we're scared and we're anxious and we don't know what's going to happen next. But that's an opportunity for us to just, grow and flourish and become something, even more incredible. I hope this has helped you, in some way. I hope you've enjoyed. As I said before, it hasn't been easy, but I hope this can provide some support to other people, especially during the crisis that we're going through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coca. Thank you. Appreciate it. Could you turn the control back over to me, pretty please?
Sure. Let me just see, how do I do that?
So let's take 5 minutes. Anybody have any questions for Coca?
I have something to share. I think I don't know if someone typed something here. David. But in the beginning of the COVID crisis, here in the bank I used to work, did the same thing. They fired all the Agiles and all the transformation office. So, but I don't have kids. I don't have all these concerns about money. I think the worst things it's back into to live with my parents or something like that. But I really know this feeling of your grounded fall apart when you get fired with Zoom with a Zoom meeting for like 15 seconds. It was like, oh, Pedro, goodbye. It was really bad to say that to you, and go to office to get your stuff tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So it's a really bad, but I think in the future will be better for me. It start to be better, but
absolutely
we'll get over it. But
great.
But
Yeah.
I feel the same, and I feel really touched about this.
Anyone else have a question for
Yep.
Coca? Yeah. Anyone else have a question for Coca? Or
So
comment?
Coca, how did your kids respond? I'm just curious because they're such a big part of your life. You're immersed in them. How did they respond to this?
So in the beginning, they were very concerned about me, David, and we could see, even their emotional reactions to the whole thing. They would be quieter, they would be sad sometimes. We could see that they were concerned as well. They started to ask questions, Mommy, are we going to be okay? Or do we have to move houses and things like this? We ended up having to move houses. Which was a very hard part for them because of their friends, and because their friends were like their first family, from us moving to Brazil over here. It was like their new beginning. Mm-hmm. So it was very intense, David, and it took time for them to settle down. And I think that, I also had a big responsibility, or I put a responsibility on my own shoulders that I had to be okay for them. And that may have been my first trap when I said too soon that it was my day zero and I was ready to start, Mm-hmm. But I've been open with them as well, how I was feeling. There were days that I was not okay, and I would let them know, I would tell them, listen, Mommy's not okay today. Can we please collaborate more? Can we please, avoid the whole fighting and stuff like this? And they would be more understanding. And they were scared, but I think that they also saw, me breaking through and going through the interviews. We would celebrate every small win together, and when I finally got a job at Zurich, they were just so happy. They are like beyond the skies, and they are so supportive now that I'm back working. They're like, shh, Mommy's working. So it's really, really cute.
That's great. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Thank you.
No
very
problem.
much. one last question or statement before we move on.
Coca, I was so curious about your CV problem. How did you manage about this? Did you drop off the information? How did you manage?
I didn't remove any information from my CV, Pablo, and I was very transparent on the recruitment processes that I was going through. And sometimes, you know, the recruiters would ask me, why are you looking for a Scrum Master role if you are head of transformation? And I was honest, you know, I said, look, I've been made redundant. I've been put on layoff. You know, I'm looking for a new opportunity. And then I would tell them, you know, what in their company attracted me. For example, in the insurance business, it's a field that I have no experience. So I am dying to learn more about the insurance business or pharmaceutical business. You know, I was looking into new industries and I was like, okay, what can I learn from this something new and how can I help them become more agile, you know, become more innovative, become, you know, faster in their deliveries and do, you know, more customer success. And this became the key points in my conversations. And until, you know, I started getting through these challenges in early stages of recruitment for interview.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
awesome. Thank you all very much. So we have a choice. We can take a 5-minute break and come back, and we'll have to cut our lean beer breakout sessions a little bit, or we can move right into lean beer. So in the chat session, if you want to take a break, please put break, or if you want to continue on, just say continue. Okay, we got one for lean beer, continue. Okay, that's 2 out of 15. 3, 4, 5. Okay, we'll continue on. All right, so we're going to stop the YouTube video now so everybody can turn your faces back on. I think this is how it works. Let's see. All right, I'm going to need some help here. How do you turn this off?
The YouTube transmission, is it?
Yeah.
I
Hang
have
on.
no
Let me
idea.
find. I
Pedro,
have
do
no
you
idea
know?
either.
No idea. We have to call someone who works with computers.